Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Paul, do you mind closing that door? Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Gerkink. I'm the organic production specialist here at Oak. Couple of quick reminders. CEUs are available, so extension agents and pesticide applicators can sign up at the front desk with CURS or KDA. Again, feedback cards are so important. Please give us your feedback on how this session was for you and any sort of ideas that you have for future sessions and future conferences. And that's it for reminders. Okay, you're here to hear Liz Graznak in Navigating Labor Challenges and Opportunities on a Small-Scale Diversified Vegetable Farm. Liz started Happy Hollow Farm in 2021. That's not wrong. 2010, after discovering community-supported agriculture farming in graduate school at Cornell University. Her passion for growing healthy food and building community has come to life through her work as a farmer. Along with her wife Katie and 2 daughters, Liz just wrapped up her 13th year of organic and real organic project certified production. She has nearly 21 acres of veggies, fruits, and flowers, an 85-member CSA, and year-round sales at the Columbia Farmers Market. She's also cultivated significant wholesale relationships with local restaurants, stores, regional farms, and nonprofits. So thank you for sharing your experience. And yeah.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me here. I know there's some other really great sessions happening, so I appreciate you being here to talk about one of the most talked about topics in small-scale agriculture. I would like to get a sense in the room of those of you that currently have employees. Raise your hands. Okay, great. So about half. All right, currently are thinking about having employees. Okay, great. Okay, awesome. All right, this is different than the other rooms, so let's make sure I know how to do this. Yes, okay. Brief history. Happy Hollow Farm is an 82-acre farm with about 21 acres in cultivated production at this point after 14 years. Beautiful soils, kind of in a creek bottom. I have a 16-acre field. That's the field that's across the road. The pointer isn't working in this little thing, but you can see where that road kind of splits the farm. And the 16-acre field is a new rented piece of ground that I now have in transitional to organic production. I have a small orchard and lots of covered high tunnel plastic growing space. Lots of high tunnel plastic growing space. This year, going into 2024, I will have 9 full-time employees, 2 part-time employees, 3 part-time employees, sorry. And my very first year, 14 years ago, I had no employees. And so it's been a trajectory of growth every year since I started. Okay, so I've run the gamut of all types of help on the farm, from volunteers to apprentices to paid employees, seasonal, paid full-time year-round employees. And one of the things that I think I have realized over the last 14 years is that it is very, very important to have a very clear understanding of the differences in these categories of help. Because if you set yourself up with unreasonable expectations of apprentices or volunteers, you, for one, will be super disappointed and frustrated. And you won't get the things accomplished that you need to get accomplished, and it will just make your life a lot more difficult. So if you, from the start, can set some clear and reasonable expectations for yourself of the type of help that you have, you will be a lot happier. And so I'm going to just go over, what I see as the differences in these categories of help, and hopefully that will help you all also think about these categories of help and how they can play a very important role in your businesses and on your farms. Yeah. So, okay. So we'll talk about volunteers first. There's wide range of people that might fit into this category. WWOOFers, CSA members. I had CSA members work on my farm for 10 years, up until COVID. I had a lot of CSA member participation in my CSA farm. It was wonderful. Neighbors come and help, other farmers coming and helping, family, lots of different categories in the realm of volunteers. So for volunteers, they are generally unskilled laborers. You need to know that going into it, knowing that going into the project that you have planned that they might be helping you with, know that going into the expectations of what you want to accomplish by having their help. You definitely just need to adjust your level of expectation of the things that you might accomplish. And you're going to get a wide range of people with varying degrees of physical abilities, their age, and some of the, in my past, some of the people that wanted to help the most were the least physically able to help. And boy, is that a challenging situation for you, the owner, farmer, to be in, because you want to provide them with something to do that makes them feel helpful and useful and helpful. But it's hard on a farm to find those tasks. It does require very constant monitoring, direction, redirection, and you never want to have folks in this category be required to work for very long stints of time, because they are not farmers. They do not do what we do day after day, hour after hour. They are not physically able to, although they're going to want to try. And then they're going to end up with heat exhaustion, or they're going to be so tired that they, walking in a field or walking down a road trip because they're so exhausted that they literally just can't pick their feet up anymore. And that's after 4 hours of doing something, 4 hours of a task. So you really have to think about the things that you're going to have volunteers do. Scheduling is quite challenging, especially with CSA members, because you set yourself up for the project and the thing that you really need to have happen, and then they cancel and they don't show up. And they want to reschedule and they want to come back out, but how do you find the time to make them fit back into your schedule? Adjusting your expectations. It's really, really important to have fun. This picture is a day that we pulled the plastic on a 200-foot, 34-foot wide high tunnel, and it took more than twice as long as it would take with 5 of my employees. And how many people are in that picture? But boy, did those folks at the end of that day have a real sense of accomplishment, which was awesome. And some of them, 1, 2, 3, some of them are actually farmers in this photo that came and helped us that day. But huge sense of accomplishment in a very big task. Everybody felt good about what we accomplished at the end of the day. Thank God there was no wind. But also, at the end of that day, like, I have never had volunteers help me pull poly again. No. Yep. Okay, apprentices. I had a very well-defined, almost class-like apprenticeship opportunity and program for the first 9 years that I was farming. I was an apprentice on a farm for the first 2 seasons that in my beginning farming career, and had wonderful experiences on those farms, and it was super important to me. I really wanted to pass that on again, be able to offer the same kinds of opportunity to other young people that were interested in wanting to get into farming. And I slogged through for 9 years, having many apprentices over those 9 years, not one of whom is farming at this point in their careers. I actually consider that a success, because they all realized that it was much more than they were really bargaining for. And so thank God they didn't get into it and spend a lot of money, get hurt. I mean, who knows? I'm glad that they figured out in their time on my farm that that actually wasn't what they wanted to do. Some of the apprentices that worked with me decided that they loved the area where the farm is so much that they now live there, have homes there, bought homes there, started families there, and they're part of my main community friendship group. That's really awesome. But they're not farming. So, having apprentices, again, got to adjust your level of expectation a little bit. Most of my apprentices that came through, and there were 23 total in that 9 years, most of them, came to the farm wanting to learn all of the things that, it took me 20 years to learn. They wanted to learn in 7 months. So that's a real stressor, on me, on a feeling of trying to impart as much knowledge as possible in a very short amount of time, but also trying to run a for-profit farm. So adjusting your level of expectation, balancing trying to teach versus actually getting the work done, the work that has to get done today, because there's much more things on the list for tomorrow, and today's list affects tomorrow's list and the next week's list. I only had 2 apprentices that I had 2 apprentices that were apprentices 1 year and then worked for me for a full year the following year, but most of them were just there for that 7 or 9 months about time frame. And truly, on a very diversified organic vegetable farm, you're getting a blip of the thing that happens today, and you might not come back and do that thing again until October, maybe. We're doing so many different, we're not working in a factory. We are not doing the same thing day after day after day. And so I look at the things that we're doing and trying to teach really anybody, and this goes for a full-time employee, it takes many times of doing the thing to learn how to do the thing, and you might not have the opportunity to do that thing more than once or twice this month before you get to come back to it, and maybe you don't even remember doing it in September because the last time you did it was in May. So apprentices get a very overview look of things, not an in-depth understanding of things. They are there for a short amount of time, generally. For where my farm is located, which is pretty remote, we are at the dead end, very end of a gravel road that's about 3 miles long. It's perfect, it's fabulous. No drive-by traffic, no dead dogs on the side of the road. It's lovely. There's a creek that runs through it, but it is remote. And generally, apprentices are young, still very much interested in having a social life, going into town, hanging out with their friends, not generally ready for farm living and the ruralness, solitude that is. So I did provide on-farm housing, very nice on-farm housing for my apprentices, but a lot of times they would like drive into town, which is 45 minutes away, at the end of the workday, and they get home at 10 o'clock at night and then hit it again at 6 a.m. in the morning. And well, that doesn't last very long. You can probably, all of you know that that doesn't work for us farmers to do that for very long. Even when I was young, it's hard to maintain that schedule. So again, adjusting your level of expectation of apprentices for the younger generation of folk. And one other thing I just wanted to mention is because I'm so remote, like it's not an option to rent a house somewhere for my I really only had the option of offering on-farm housing. You know, the closest place that they would be able to rent a house is 20 minutes away. So that's still like a kind of a haul. I'm not getting deep into this, but I did have different insurance because my insurance provider said, oh, you have apprentices, unpaid employees working for you? Oh, well, we need to talk about some different insurance. She had the same reaction with having CSA members out on the farm, volunteering, helping. So you need to think about that if you have volunteers or apprentices working for you. It is a lot of extra work for you. It was for me because I was really motivated and dedicated to try to provide this learning environment. We had class time. We used a book that I tried to like balance the actual physical work with the learning of I don't know exactly how to say that, but we would sit down and we would read chapters in a couple of different books, and then we would talk about it, how it related to the things we were doing on the farm. But it took a lot of my time, and if teaching is like one of your passions, it can be extremely rewarding, and I really do enjoy sharing the things that I've learned and the things that I've learned to like not do. But is that what you got into the business of farming to do? Ask yourself that. If it's not, then maybe having apprentices is not the right decision for you, because you're going to spend a lot of time teaching with apprentices. Okay. Also, more than happy to answer questions as we go along. We 100% do not have to like wait until the very end. If you have a comment or a question, feel free, shoot them out there. Okay. Employees, I have had, sorry.
How did you recruit apprentices?
Many different ways. Thank you. How did I recruit apprentices? Many different ways. Social media, CSA emails, flyers in towns, in businesses around town, word of mouth. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Were they paid?
Yes, paid and free housing. Yep. Okay. All right. Uh-huh.
What tasks did you find were good for volunteers?
What tasks did I find that were good for volunteers? So Good or bad, I would have my volunteers do the same things that I was doing. I mean, they were not driving a tractor. But if we needed to stir a hoe 2 beds of lettuce today because it was the thing that needed to be done, that's what we did. So I did not distinguish generally tasks. However, I had to stop being pissed off because 20% of the heads of lettuce got cultivated instead of just weeded around. And I will tell you, it took me a couple of years to like click in my brain that I had to like start thinking about these categories of people working and helping on the farm differently. I will tell you that those first 9 years of having active CSA membership participation helped me build my CSA, and boy did it help with retention, because it only took 4 hours of having a person on the farm and helping do whatever it was that we were doing that day to realize how grateful they were for that box of vegetables that they got every single week. I mean, I have about a 72% from year to year retention rate in CSA membership. And the people that routinely would sign up but not rejoin were the ones that bought out of the CSA membership work requirement. So they were never on the farm. Now, when COVID happened, the year after COVID, and I decided to, lots of things changed in my farming operation. Many, many things changed. That year of COVID and then after COVID. And so I do not have CSA membership work requirements anymore. I have to work extra hard to engage and keep members engaged and knowing about what's happening on the farm and talking to them, going to the drop sites rather than having somebody else go to the drop sites because they're not coming to the farm anymore. But we could talk about other things related to that, but yeah. Okay, so employees. I have had employees since my second year. I started off with some part-time folks, and I did not have full-time year-round employees until maybe my 6th or 7th growing season. Yeah, I think around my 6th or 7th growing season. But I've always had a lot of part-time and seasonal employees. All right, so, sorry. I think about employees from sort of 5 main objectives, and those objectives are, for me, critically important. Lots of organization on my part, being very, very well organized, having very clear standard operating procedures for all things, and we're going to talk about those. If you can mull over in your brains all the potential things that you do on your farm that you could potentially have SOPs for, I have SOPs for them. I kind of follow this 4 basic rule teaching strategy for employees, and we're going to talk about that. It's super, super important that you as the boss set the example for your employees, and you maintain that example as much as possible. And lastly, being kind, thoughtful, and directive with your employees. I do think that all of us did probably not get into farming with the plan and thought that we were going to be bosses. That's not why we decided we wanted to start farming. It's just one of the things that happens when your business is growing. And most of us don't have any training in how to be a good boss. So we have to work extra hard at doing that. So if you're going to be a good boss and have employees that want to work for you year after year, it's going to take work on your part to learn how to be a good boss. So, organization. This actually happens to be one of the things that I'm really good at. I don't know why. I don't know how it just like got born into me, but I am a super organized person, and when I am not organized, I feel really stressed, and I feel really like things are just like flying around in the air, crazy. And so in order for me to function, I have to maintain organization. Well, it actually has turned out to be very useful in running a business and running a farm, because there's so many things happening all the time. I tend to run off of clipboards. You can see one of the 3 walls that is in my pack shed that is a clipboard world, because we run off of lists, lots and lots of lists. And every clipboard has a purpose. Lots of things are color-coded based on what the task is. So all the paper that's for a harvest log is all green. So you don't even need to know what that clipboard is, because you can see the green paper from halfway across the pack shed, and you know that that's the clipboard that's for the harvest log. So that's one of the ways that I've helped organize and try to create more order on the farm. Lots and lots of lists. So we have daily lists, we have long-term lists, we have skilled versus unskilled labor lists, we have individual employee lists. Once you have employees and you start to learn their quirks, we all have our quirks, we all have our things that we're good at, we all have our things that we aren't very good at, and you as the employer need to learn that about your employees. You can start to think about assigning certain tasks or responsibilities to certain people. So I keep individual employee lists. Seeding logs, transplanting logs, spray logs, harvest logs, packing lists, invoices, CSA lists, what's next list. One of my employees asked me for that last year and said that it would help him and his crew if they could know, not like what's next hour, tomorrow, but what's next, like next week list. And I was like, hell yeah, you can see that list. You betcha. But I thought how great and how helpful, for me to have other people thinking about those things as they're doing the tasks that they're working on, but it means that they're thinking about the bigger picture. And I always have that list. It's on a clipboard on my desk, and now it's in a different place so that everybody can look at it. All right, organization. Super, super important, especially as you get bigger and you have more and more and more employees. Right, Bree? Yep. Okay, standard operating procedures. I didn't really start creating these until about 5 years ago. And it was right before the year of COVID. I had 6 employees maybe that year. And the year of COVID, I ended up having 11 employees, pretty much all of whom had never worked on a farm before. A couple of them, yes. And it was so much more apparent to me that I needed to have some way of communicating with all of these employees, all of the various things, without having an individual conversation within each one of them about all of the various things. So that was what really pushed me over a winter to type up and create all these standard operating procedure lists, directives for a bajillion tasks. So this is an example of some of those SOPs. So it's really in the details. Some of these SOPs I can look at a written SOP and think, oh, this person would be so good at this task. And this person, I don't really ever want them to do this task ever. And that comes with getting to know the people that you're working with and realizing their buy-in, their, I don't know exactly what you want to call it, but their engagement in the farm and really getting to know them. And that takes time, but it's also incredibly helpful and incredibly useful for you, the farmer, the business owner, to get that information and find that information out about the folks that are working for you. Okay. Our week runs kind of harvest days versus project days, and I think about those days very differently. And so we have SOPs that are very tailored to those different days because the things we're doing on those days are very different. I want tools to be listed. I want the objectives of the task to be listed. Those are all things that are included in the standard operating procedure for the task, for the thing. So here's some examples of the SOPs. Seeding and transplanting guidelines. So I have a seeding SOP for the greenhouse. I have a transplanting SOP for the field. And the picture on the left, on the right, is a pack shed guideline, now translated into Spanish because I have Spanish employees. So we have harvesting guidelines, we have washing guidelines, and the washing guidelines are by crop type. So there's something that talks about lettuce, there's something that talks about bunched greens, there's something that talks about salad type mixes. There's something that talks about peppers, all of the different crops. I've got something for processing and storage, specific for processing and storage. I've got packing and pack shed guidelines. I have walk-in cooler guidelines. I have equipment use and storage guidelines. I have, yes? These are all SOPs. Yeah, it's my guidelines for how to do the tasks involved, for example, in the walk-in cooler. The things you need to be thinking about and paying attention to in the walk-in cooler. The things that you need to, the guidelines, the things you need to be paying attention to and thinking about when washing vegetables. High tunnel and low tunnel lists, guidelines, greenhouse, things very, very specific to the greenhouse, animals. The only animals that I have on the farm are laying hens, but I do have one person that is their job is to check and take care of the laying hens. So we have SOPs for the laying hens. Vehicles, we have lots of vehicles, delivery vehicles, farm vehicles, delivery trailers. So I've got one for vehicles. I've got one for housing. Having people live in your housing, it is easier to talk about beforehand than afterhand when something has happened in the house that you own. It is better to set out clear expectations and guidelines of how you expect your house that you own to be taken care of, cleaned, maintained at the beginning rather than at the end after something has happened. So I've got guidelines about the housing. Set some standards and uphold them. Yeah.
So how do you present these? Is it like a manual or is it on something you share electronically?
It's all printed, and the wash pack guidelines are in a binder in the wash pack shed. The greenhouse guidelines are in the greenhouse. When I have new employees start, I have one binder that has everything in it, and trust me, I do not, give them this binder and say, okay, take the next 3 hours and read this. I don't do that. But we talk about all of the categories. I do go over with them the fact that these SOPs exist, that if they have a question about something, if we're gonna do something new and they've never done it before, and I'm with them and we're doing it together, and 3 hours later they have a question about something that we were doing, I ask them to check the binder first and see if their question could be answered by taking a look at the SOPs. And if not, bring it to me, we'll chat about it, and maybe that means I need to amend the SOPs. It has reduced a lot of people coming to me every 5 minutes to ask me a question, because they can find the answers to a lot of the questions. The places where I do require that you actually read these SOPs are in the wash pack shed and the processing and handling of the vegetables, because everything is different. Broccoli takes something different than peppers, takes something different than a head of lettuce, takes something different than a bunch of leeks. And not only are we gonna talk about it, but I need you to read this and really process it and understand it and remember it. And then if you have a question, you know where the SOP binder is so that you can go and look and remind yourself. I also have a printed out storage recommendation guidelines for every single crop that we grow on the outdoor wall of the walk-in cooler for the cold walk-in, on the outdoor wall by the door of the warm walk-in. So you can see the list of the vegetables that go in there and their best storage temperatures.
So, and like different crops are planted in different densities and different, I made this planting pattern book that nobody could understand. So it made sense to me, but
What I did for transplanting purposes and direct seeding purposes, I took every crop has a page, and lettuce has a page, and we plant lettuce at 12-inch spacing, 3 rows per bed. Drip tape is 4-inch spaced drip tape, 1 line of drip tape per row. Those details are on that page for lettuce. And I've got one of those for every crop that we grow.
is it like words or picture?
It's words. I didn't think about putting a picture on there. That's a good idea. But you know what? This is going to come later, but I will tell you that having professional employees, which I now have, you can tell someone that is there to work as an employee, you can tell them one time and they will not ever ask you again, because they will remember. Because they understand why it's important that they not come and ask me every single time, every other week that they're going to plant lettuce. Oh wait, what's the spacing that we're supposed to plant lettuce at? No. They're not going to ask you again, because they know, because you explained it to them one time, and then that's it. I still have that binder book. Yeah. Set standards and uphold them. Set a good example for the people that you are working with. And it doesn't matter if it's your employees or your volunteers or your CSA members. And also, don't ever lose your cool. Nobody wants to see you in a tirade out there in the field. Okay. A farmer told me this many, many, many years ago, and I started adapting this sort of 4 basic rules for instructing somebody how to do something, and it's great. I have found it extremely useful, so I'm going to share it. You guys, maybe some of you do this. But you explain the task from start to finish. And I think this is because we all learn very differently. Some people are listeners, some people are doers, some people need to see the thing. So you explain the task from start to finish. You demonstrate how to do it. You work together doing the task, letting them do the task by themselves. You there, because you're demonstrating and helping do the task together. And then you walk away and come back in 15 or so minutes. Check in on them. Make sure that they are doing all of the things that you instructed them to do. Correct if you need to correct. Remind if you need to remind. Tell them they're doing a great job if they're doing a great job. And let them do the thing. And then maybe in an hour, check back in with them. But it works great. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, you fucked that up so bad. Yeah. Okay. Stop feeling bad about having the expectation that somebody will do something the way that you've instructed them to do it, first of all, because that is not on your shoulders. Think about the way that you give the instruction, how clear you are giving that instruction, how clear you're explaining the thing. Make sure you're explaining it very well. It's fine to over-explain. And when you come back and check in and there's something that maybe they missed, they didn't hear the full 9-step process, don't apologize. It's not your fault, unless you just didn't tell them. Then you could apologize. Be clear and direct and just say, okay, this is not what I was, how do I usually do this? Okay, this is not right. We're going to fix it together. I'm going to show you again the thing, whatever it is. I'm going to make sure that you understand why the way that you did it didn't work, or I don't know. And we're going to do it again together. And okay, your turn, go for it. Let's do it again. You're like retraining them, sort of. And then walk away again. But don't wait an hour to come back. And the 15-minute rule is really important, because in 15 minutes, they really can't fuck it up too bad. They can a little bit, but not too bad. So don't wait longer than 15 minutes.
I think you also add what they are doing right.
Yes.
Phrase that it kind of melts away tension.
It's only going to be tense if you're tense. You know? Don't be tense. They're your peer. They work for you. Don't apologize. This is not your fault. Professional interaction with another fabulous human being. They don't want to do a bad job at all, you know? So you're just going to help correct the problem and move on, and then they're going to do it right, and they're going to feel great. Okay. Expect the best and set the example. And if you are having a moment that you do need to let your head explode, make sure that you do it somewhere that your employees are not all standing there looking at you. And at the end of the day, when you're drinking a beer together, then you could talk about those things. That's the time. But it is not the time to explode and yell at somebody or whatever it is in front of and around your employees. This comes with, so I wanted to tell you guys about sustainable, oh my God. When I get in situations like this, all things like that I should know, they just like fly out of my brain. Fair Shares, CSA Coalition, out of Wisconsin, has put together what's it called? Did you do this? It's called Becoming the Employer of Choice. Whew. Becoming the Employer of Choice. And it is thank you, we're good. It is a how to be a good boss teaching class. And they had some cohorts, 2 or 3 cohorts last year. I know that they've got ones that are coming up for this year. It's a great resource. Check it out. Okay. Set and maintain levels of expectation. Have clear and succinct SOPs. You do have to draw a line between teaching versus getting the work done. It is on you, the employer, to learn about your employees, to find out the things that they are good at and the things that maybe you don't ever want them to do again because they have other skills. It does require a lot of scheduling and coordinating on your part. Do not think that you are not going to have to work when you have employees. It is going to take a lot of extra work that does not involve pulling the weeds and the carrots. You have to be patient, and you definitely have to have fun. Because the work that we do is too physically hard, too mentally challenging, too all things demanding, to not also try to have fun when we're doing it. And as my very, very good friend Chris said, be kind. Do not be an asshole. All right. I do have, as of 3 years ago, a new crew of H-2A agricultural work visa folks, and there was 100% a language barrier. I spoke not one word of Spanish when I had my first 2 guys start in the fall of 2021? Yeah, I think that's right. So I have had to learn a lot of Spanish. There's a lot of cultural differences that I have also had to learn about. You do have to have housing, provide housing for H-2A visa workers. I personally, for my farm, do all of the application process and the paperwork myself. I have not gone through a broker or a company to do this documentation stuff for me. Payroll is very significant and set by your state and wage division. It is no different having employees that are from another country versus employees that are here. You still have to set very high levels of expectation. I have had to get used to keeping ahead of them because they're very fast workers, they're very efficient workers, and it has taken a significant amount of work on my part to stay ahead of the day. That's been a real learning curve for me. Having professional employees that have a super clear understanding of their responsibilities, of the work that they do, of the quality of the work that they do, of the appreciation of the work that they do, is super different than having CSA members or volunteers or WWOOFers or apprentices out on your farm. It's just a very different level of professionalism. But it also I will say, and I said, this morning, if you were in the panel, making this switch to H2A workers totally saved my farm. I would not be farming today. I was ready to quit because the farm was not making enough money at the level of production that we were at that was sustainable. And I was stressed out all the time. I had 11 employees that year, and we still couldn't do it. And in 3 years, the farm has increased in production about 70%, and I have fewer employees, and we are kicking ass. So, and I love farming again. I love it. And my employees love it. So I just want to make sure to not gloss over that there are challenges in having employees. Managing people is quite hard. It's time consuming. It can be very stressful. It's expensive. There's so many variables involved. It is constant and never ending, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It is always changing. You cannot count on anything to be the same from month to month. And you do have to figure out and realize how to draw the line between being a friend and being a boss. I want everyone to have a fun and enjoyable work experience, and I want to work alongside my employees, but I also have the responsibility to make sure that we produce enough so that I can continue to make payroll and pay the other bills that exist. And so I do have to draw some distinction and some separation between the fact that we are friends, but also I am the boss, and I am the one that it all comes down to, being on my shoulders to make sure that the things function and work and move forward like they're supposed to. Having employees is super rewarding also. Super, super rewarding. You can meet some awesome people. Like I said, there are 3 people that worked for me over the last 14 years that now live in my neighborhood, have kids and are raising kids and are will die in my neighborhood. And they are part of my family now. And so that's just awesome and amazing. You potentially are training new farmers, and boy, do we need them. We need new farmers. But also, I don't want anybody to gloss over and make it seem like it is not actually a whole lot of work, because it is a whole lot of work, and you're doing a disservice to the folks that are working for you if they leave you thinking that it's not a whole lot of work. There's a whole lot of camaraderie and teamwork that exists. You are building your business, and for me, it's very important. I want to feel like I am providing meaningful and beneficial employment to folks. I want them to have pride in what they do and respect for what they do every day. That's so important to me. And it's really important to have fun. We go on a float trip every fall in August, the middle of August, the time of the year that sucks, being a vegetable farmer. We all leave the farm for 3 days, and we go floating. One year we went to a baseball game. Everybody wants to go floating. So that's been awesome. It's really important to have fun. And that's it. So. Yeah. Yes. So you, as the employer, do have the option, I think especially if you are the one that is filling out the paperwork, to request the individuals that you would like. if you are going through, I can't speak specifically through going through a company or a recruiter because I've not done that. I don't know, maybe Bree can answer. I don't know very much about going through a company or a recruiter and how that works. I have only, my first 2 employees that came and worked for me the first fall were recommended to me by other employees that work at bigger vegetable farms and had worked at that farm for like going on 15 years. Long time employees of that farm, and those 2 folks each recommended somebody, and that's how I got the first 2 folks that came and worked for me the first fall. And I will say that all of the people that work for me have never worked on a diversified vegetable farm before. Like, nobody knew what fennel was. Nobody has seen ginger growing in the ground before. But these are all very teachable, very learnable skills. Uh-huh. Yep. W-2. The only person that ever was a 1099 was my delivery driver, but W-2. Did you guys hear that question? I'm sorry, I didn't repeat the question. But they were all W-2 employees. Mm-hmm. Oh, no. That stuff makes my brain hurt. I hired somebody. Mm-hmm. Somebody over here. Yeah?
Does an H-2A worker have to go home to Mexico or wherever?
Yes. Yes, the maximum amount of time that an H-2A worker can stay in the States working is for 10 months. Yeah.
So did you use the W-2 paperwork even for seasonal?
Yep, sure did. Everything is above board. I mean, I can give cash bonuses, absolutely, you bet, all the time, but I want to do things by the books. I didn't, I hired somebody. Yep, from the start. I literally asked a friend of mine who was another small business owner, owns a coffee shop in Columbia. Who do you use for payroll processing? Who do you use for your bookkeeping? Who do you use for, and went off of that and have gone through a couple of different people, finding the right person. But I just literally started by asking another small business owner, because that's what we are. We're small business owners. Yes, go ahead.
Can you request the same workers to return?
Yes, you absolutely can. And if they're great workers, you should, because then you don't have to retrain people.
So they go home and then they can come back?
Yep. You just have to apply for another round of visas. You apply every year for your visas.
How long are they gone once they leave? How long is that time before they can come back?
They are required to be at home for a minimum amount of time as 2 months. Hold on. Yeah.
Is there a minimum time that they have to be here in the U.S.?
No. You can apply for a visa for however much time you want, but you as the employer are required to give them 75% of the hours that you on the application say that you are going to provide. So if you are going to, on your application, you say that work hours are 8 to 5, 5 days a week, that's 9 to 5. 9 to 5, I'm going to make my math real easy, 40 hours a week. If you say you are going to provide 40 hours a week, you as the employer are required in the amount of time that they are here to give them a minimum of 75% of that time.
And financially, is it reasonable to have H-2A workers for, say, just a month?
No. Ooh. I don't want to answer that. For my farm and my business, no. He asked if it's financially reasonable to have an H-2A worker for 1 month, to apply for a visa to be there for 1 month. You know what? Don't even think about it from H-2A worker. Is it worth your time to employ someone to work for you for 1 month They can barely learn the task that it is that you need them to do in 1 month. It doesn't matter where they're from.
Like a seasonal worker, like seasonal. There's certain things you're gonna need done through the season.
Yeah.
Like harvest time, of course, it's gonna be
Yeah. If you were a big enough farm that all they were doing was harvesting peppers for 8 hours a day, maybe. But that's not you probably, right? No. Yeah. Yeah.
Provide housing, I assume meals particularly.
Nope, no meals. Everybody cooks for themselves. You do have to provide transportation in some form. Either you provide them with transportation into town so they can go grocery shopping, run errands, do whatever once a week, or you can, like what I did, I helped them study, pass the driver's test, get a driver's license, and provided them with a car, and they can go and do whatever they want whenever they want. And they have free access to a vehicle that I provide.
How much you have to pay them?
The ANWR wage rate in Missouri, completely different in Kentucky. I have no idea what it is here. This year, it's been different every single year that I have done this, is $17.79 an hour. And my employees are so good that I pay them more than that.
For your seasonal workers, how do you explain the hours over a season of when they're gonna work? Do you show them a calendar, or you come up with a certain amount of hours and you say that it's guaranteed? How do you get it?
So are you talking about like the part-time seasonal workers that I've hired in the past? I would tell them, I would just know, that I wanted to, say, provide employment for the months of May through November. And, based on their schedules, most of those folks don't want to work 40 hours a week. So then based on their schedules, we would work together to come up with a reasonable schedule. Maybe they mark Mondays, Tuesdays, maybe they work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we would just work out what their schedule was going to be. But I was very clear at the get-go that come November 1st, probably they would be laid off. It's hard to find people that want to do that. Yep.
That goes back to my question again. How do you recruit seasonal?
I don't anymore. I post on Facebook and Instagram that I'm hiring, and that is the extent of the recruiting that I do. Because I have employees, full-time employees that want to work as many hours as I will let them work.
And how did you find that?
They're H-2A visa workers. Hold on one second. Yep.
I'm curious how, your position has changed as you've brought more employees in.
My position has changed a lot. I am not harvesting kale 3 days a week. I am not weeding lettuces anymore because the farm is much bigger and the farm requires management and staying ahead of the tasks that need to get done, and planning, and also sales. I'm running my farm by myself. I don't have a farming partner. It's one of the things that I was not really prepared for. I knew it was going to happen, but I wasn't actually mentally ready to think about the fact that this was going to happen, and that my physical activity out in the field every single day was going to be drastically different than what I was used to. But partially, I just consider myself really super lucky. I have found folks that love the work, want the work, can see themselves working with me at this farm for many, many, many years. So I'm investing in them. I am creating someone to take over the farm management position. It's going to take a little while. We can't all learn all the things that it takes to run a diversified vegetable farm in a year. But I'm cultivating that to happen because the farm needs that. And the farm needs lots of positions like that, not just a farm sort of manager person. But it takes time, and I'm working on that. Yeah, he had a question, or maybe he doesn't have a question anymore. Any more? Totally good. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm curious, are you mentioned the wage rate, are you following, is there is it the recent program have its own max hour?
No, it's well, the wage rate is set by your state. The hours given are federal. You must follow the 75%